Okay, welcome to another short video on my testimonies of God. Dad figures. I had 5 dad figures in my life, God surrogates, if you will, so to speak. They weren't, some were there longer than others, but when I reflect and looking back, if these 5 men would have not been in my life, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Excuse me. Especially the one in the middle. So after the 2 divorces and all that, and I was fatherless in Kansas City area in 1962 at 6 years old. So the first one, uh, there were several men in the church. Mom would try and get elders and this and that to kind of come by and do some things, but they were very, very sporadic. And once in a while, they were busy men, had lives and church business to take care of. So as we lived there on 10th Street in Independence, Missouri, just right next to Kansas City, a suburb, the Hutzels moved in next door to us. And that would be Jim and Judy Hutzel. And they had no children. He was into guitars and they would sing, and they would even sing hymns, but they would also sing country western and this and that, and drink some beer and whatnot. And he smoked. But he did have some morals and values. His mother believed in God. And Lee Hutzel was a wonderful little lady who lived with neighbors for years and years and years later on next to my mother, very, very good friends. And so Jim kind of allowed me to hang with it. And so I would watch him work on all these motorcycles and watch him do all kinds of things. And this is when I'm about, I don't know, 10, 11, 12-ish. And they were there till I was, actually until I moved on to the next surrogate dad. But they took me camping and they took me to the lake and this and that, and I was there pretty often. So every time, after school, if I'd see him come home from work and go down to the shop, I'd be there, Johnny on the spot, hanging out. And we loved each other. And for the most part, it was really nice. And Judy was always nice to me. And I was there when their first born came along, little Luke, and Jenny and Danny came along later. It was just a neat thing. But of course, I started smoking at 12, around there, 13. And I don't know, Jim had a lot to do with it, but I'm sure that and all the commercials on TV and Camel and Marlboro Man and all that. So we move on to Jim Bud, who was I was starting to get out of line at 13. And so, Jim Hutzel and Judy, they had their son and they were raising and so on. So I kind of went over there for 3 or 4 months to get out of trouble. I had been, arrested and detention and all that stuff. So I went into Jim Bud's house for some time. And then after that, it was met the Gerald Henning through the witnessing weekends. And there was the key part. So if all these surrogates, if I wouldn't have had Jim Hutzel, it could have been even worse, or not ever met Jim Budd later on, because I could have already been incarcerated in juvenile detention and so on. So they all had some rules and morals and values in varying degrees. So then when Henning stepped in and I was charged with strong arm robbery and sentenced to a year in McCune, he took me to his home. He's not there. I become a mean, hateful felon. I know, because of the things that had happened in my life and the child abuse and sexual abuse and all those things to me early on. I was already full of anger and hate that I didn't even know about. I just knew when I got mad, I got really mad. And so with Henning interceding, the Hennings, that changed my life path. And all these men changed my life path. And then after that, I went in the Marine Corps and got through all those things and survived all those other things in my life. I come back to Independence area and we moved down there to be closer to my mother, and I meet a man called Gerald Phillips, 97 years old when he passed. And I knew him for about, I don't know, 6, 7 years, him and his wife Edith. But he was another father figure. And I would go over there trying to reap his wisdom and sat in the garden. He had a beautiful garden, all above ground, planted on like cattle panels and 4x4 posts, 60, 70 feet long, times 10 or 15 of those. And every year he did the same thing and had a seating area and this and that. And we had these two old chairs down there in the shade tree by a shed. And we just go down there and talk about life. And this man had been in church his whole life. And then the church went in disarray as a whole. So they kind of went home and just stayed in their Bibles, which was a sad thing. And I did get him into church, several times, and not an enormous amount, but the bottom line was he was another surrogate dad, older, full of wisdom, quite different than the rest of them. And then when he passed away and we moved down south and bought a farm, then there was a neighbor called Joe Powell, another surrogate dad, cared about me, said if I ever need anything, you ever need money, anything, you come see me. I will help you out. And we would talk about everything in life there was to talk about. And totally open with each other, totally loved each other. And he passed away, unfortunately, his last year, or year and a half ago. So I'm out of surrogate dads at the moment, but God placed key men at key times in my life. All of them were loving to me. All of them were kind to me. All of them tried to help me. So praise be to God. So the next testimony, get in the Word, stay in the Word, so you may rightly divide the Word.